your calendar and your checkbook are what you prioritize in your life. Go over the next 30 days, see what you've spent money on and what you spent your time on. That's the real priority in your life. You may say it may be family, but if you're golfing every weekend, or if you're at the pub or you're at the liquor store, whatever you spend your time and your money on in the last 30 days, those are your actual priorities.
Hello and welcome. Kate Champion here. And that is the voice of Richard Kauffman. Today on Living Big Mindfully, I am excited to be connecting with Richard, also known as the Comeback Coach. And through his books and massive podcast, Vertical Momentum, Richard has helped literally hundreds of thousands of people. So 2 things today. Richard has an incredibly powerful story, and this is a must-listen conversation. We take a deep dive into recovering identity, deciding to live, addiction, choosing sobriety, and the power of writing obituaries. Richard talks openly about his history, his story, and his mantra, "Today I decide." We talk about living intentionally and the power of mindset and gratitude. Bookmark this episode because this show is also packed with so many actionable tips and strategies to help you begin to say no, set intentions, and really find that moment of choice, which I do believe we all can access. No surprise, Richard wraps it all up with some powerful sage advice. And huge, Richard is offering listeners a gift copy of his book and a free coaching call. Link will be in the show notes. Something I will be taking advantage of for sure, and I encourage you to too. This is a real opportunity. Richard is the real deal. No fluff, no BS, no strings. And I'm so grateful to be able to share this conversation with you today. Lastly, a couple of quick community announcements. You know, everything we do here, from the podcast to the books to the communities, is all about supporting and inspiring you to live a longer, stronger, more intentional life. And today's conversation checks all those boxes and so much more. If you haven't already, grab your copy from Panic to Peace, your free guide, a must if your loved one is struggling with stress or anxiety, or join one of our safe, supportive online communities. Of course, everything can be found by visiting katechampionauthor.com. And whether you're listening for the first time or a regular, please know I appreciate you, I support you, and I thank you for listening today. Okay, my friends, here's Richard.
Hello, I am so excited to see and welcome Richard Kauffman to the show today. Hi, Richard.
Hi, how are you? Thank you so much for having me on your amazing show.
Oh my gosh, I said to Richard in the little pre-chat that I just have a little bit of feel a little bit of nervousness in my tummy today, and for me that just tells me that this is just going to be an important conversation, and I really want to take a deep dive with Richard and really get into the weeds about some things. So first of all, I do want to give a shout out to Tammy Vincent, right? Tammy Vincent has this amazing podcast called Adult Child of Dysfunction. And Rich has been a guest. I've been a guest. She has some amazing guests, and she is our connection. I listened to Richard's podcast on Tammy's podcast, and that's how I reached out to Tammy. And then Tammy said, "You have to connect with Richard. You have to connect with Richard." Truthfully, that was 6 months ago. So, check out Tammy Vincent's podcast. I'll make sure I put a link in the show notes.
She is truly amazing. She's changing the world one person at a time.
Yeah, she's great energy, great energy. All right, Richard, let's dive in. I want to hear really about you and your story.
I don't know where you want to start. So, guys, my name is Richard Kauffman, also known as the Comeback Coach. I'm just a junkie who got lucky. And I tell everybody I'm just a guy who knows a guy. I don't think my story's that big of a deal. Some people do, some people don't. I give you the quick down and dirty, and then we can go wherever you want to go with. I've come back from drug addiction, alcoholism, homelessness, post-traumatic stress, blindness. I'm a ninth grade dropout, and we were, as before we got on here, we talked about being a lifelong learner. I'm a ninth grade dropout, but I've read over 6,000 books, and I have 18 going right now and 2 audiobooks. And so for me, every day is a learning curve. Every day is just being on the show it's a learning. So I'm going to learn something new when I'm here. So I'm just a guy who shouldn't be here, shouldn't even be sitting in this chair right now. But because of him, I'm here. And I'm just trying to tell people that your past does not dictate your future. So we can go wherever you want to go.
So, you know me, I like to take a deep dive. Listeners know I really want to get into the weeds. So tell me about, I'm air quotes, right? Shouldn't be here. Tell me, that's really piqued my curiosity. Tell me about that. Tell me about that time in your life when, things were pretty dark.
Well, I don't remember anything from ages 10 below. I remember bits and pieces, but that stuff has been locked away, and I'm still trying to unlock it because I grew up an abused child. I grew up parents of addicts. So I don't remember a whole lot. And sometimes, like this year, I'm going to be on 300 episodes of 300 podcasts this year. And one of the questions people ask me is, what did you want to be when you're an adult? I was like, I never expected to make it to be an adult. I never expected to live past the age of 20. So for me, I didn't expect to be here. So everything is a gift. Every day is a gift. Every day I wake up is a gift. So that's when I mean that I'm not supposed to be here, because I've made it through suicide attempts, overdoses, got run over by cars, got my head run over by a Humvee. So I shouldn't be here, but I'm here. So that's why I say I shouldn't be here, because I think the man upstairs has bigger plans for me. And I think that's why he's keeping me here. But I don't think I should be alive today, everything I've been through. So
we're talking about, one of your phrases, right, is today I choose, right? So first of all, tell me what that means to you. And then let's unpack that a little bit.
Well, for me, the 3 most important words in the English language are today I decide. Today I decide I can be a victim or I can be a victor. And 3 main moments, and I'm sure we'll talk about them later, that the decisions that I made could have took me one way or another. The first time was January 1st, 1989, when I almost got locked up and was looking at 5 years prison time for grand larceny. And I had a choice. I can go to jail or give the guy I robbed, the police officer I robbed, the money back and go to my first AA meeting. Or I can go to jail for 5 years. So I made the choice to say, I decided to go to AA, and I haven't had a drink since 1989. That was one of them. Then the second one was 9/11. 9/11 changed my life, and I got thrown out of the military for being a drug addict. I got back in, was going to be thrown out again for a second time. But because of what happened on the morning of September 11th, my whole life changed, my world changed. And I decided at 27 to stop living for myself and start living to help people that can help themselves. So that was my second decision. And then my third decision was my attempted suicide, Memorial Day 2012. When we could talk about it later, whatever you want to talk about, but my 6-month-old daughter saved me from taking my life. And for me, I could have had a choice. I could have either ran into the concrete barrier, or I could have listened to the still small voice.
Mm.
So for me, it's, I'll be successful in 5 years by the choices that I make at this moment. I can be hanging out with you doing the right thing, or I can be out there doing the wrong thing. And 5 years from now, it'll tell me, well, everything goes back to what you were doing at that moment 5 years before. So everything is the decisions that you make. Because I hear a lot of people say, my mother, my father, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, yeah, but you're making the decisions today. You're making a decision, if you're going to go out and cheat on your husband or your wife, that's a decision you're making. Don't get mad when you're in divorce proceedings and get your kids taken away from you, because the decisions you made. Nobody makes the decisions for you at this age. As an adult, nobody makes the decisions for you but you. So I'm a big guy. I'm a big believer on making decisions.
Yeah, there is so much there, and I just kind of having struggle kind of connecting with some words right now. But I'm feeling a lot, right? I'm feeling a lot of kind of power from you and determination, and you really, really, like 100% believe in the power of decisions, or the power of choosing, right? I mean,
well, just think about it. And I'm going to ask you a question, because you're going to be on my show. How many things have you done in your life that you didn't have to make a decision to do it?
So this is where the conversation starts, right? Because I don't know. So part of me wants to answer that question. Some things for sure. Some things, right? I decided to go back to school later, and I call myself a late bloomer, right? I don't do anything backwards and everything late. So after a shit show of a childhood and early adulthood, I decided to go back to school and get the psychology degree, et cetera, right? I cognitively made that choice and decision and took action, right? But is there something bigger at play there, right? Is there something that kind of led me to that I had no awareness at the time, right? So I don't know if I know on one level I made a decision, but on the other level, what led me to that, right? Because I was in a whole other side of the world. I was in a whole different country. I had no money. I was like, literally, I was an illegal immigrant. I'm legal now, but right then I was a legal immigrant. But yet something was pushing me to start at community college and kind of go from there. And yes, I can say, yes, I made a decision to sign up for classes and stuff, but really, did I have choice, or was something else pushing me? So I don't know. What are you thinking? How are you responding to that? What's coming up?
Well, I believe the man upstairs, I believe that our lives were predetermined before we got here. And I think that, I was listening to it, The Purpose Driven Life, as I was on my way here. And it talks about how, I believe in predetermination, but I also believe that God can change his mind on certain things. So, I believe that we're all here for a reason. I just think, especially with these stupid things in our hands, that we don't listen for the still quiet voice. So I think the world's telling us stuff, but we're so involved with everything else that we're not actually listening to what we need to hear. That's my opinion.
Okay. So let's go back to those three pivotal moments. Obviously, maybe not obviously, but in my mind, the depth of one of those moments is the suicide attempt, right? I mean, that's I am a therapist, and I work with people that have tried and just kind of come back from that, and sadly have lost people that have succeeded in taking their life as well, right? So that is the ultimate choice in my mind, right? To live or die, life or death. So tell me a little bit about that for you, and what was the choice? What was the pivotal moment that you decided, no, I'm going to stick around?
Well, it's a little bit long of an answer, so hopefully you don't mind. What happened was I got hurt on duty, and I lost 80% of my vision in the military. So, you can't see, you can't shoot, we don't need you. So for 23 years after I got back in the military, I did everything I could to be the ultimate soldier. Everything was Sergeant Kauffman. Who was Sergeant Kauffman? Everything was, my life was built around the military. And then when they come to me and ask me for my IED, and they tell me, well, you're no longer, Sergeant Kauffman. And it's scary. And guys, I'm no way a professional whatsoever. But I've had over 1,250 interviews on my show, talking to psychologists. I've talked to a lot of people, and no matter what job you hold, there's a shelf life. And when you have to hang that certain thing up for the last time, and your whole identity is wrapped up in the one thing, it can be very scary. And for me, I lost my vision. Now I don't have money coming in. I don't have a career. And I know it's going to take a while before my family's going to get on their feet. And I thought to myself, and like, I had a plan, but like Mike Tyson says, everybody has a plan until you get punched in the mouth. My plan was to take my life, because in the military, if you die on duty, your family gets a certain amount of money. So I figured, if I take myself out, at least my family, they'll be good for a couple of years and be able to get on their feet. But so I got in my car and I bought a brand new truck, because I love trucks. And I knew that in New Jersey, all the highways, it's nothing but concrete on either side. I know if I got that truck up to 100 miles an hour and hit into a concrete barrier, it's over. It's a wrap. So I called my wife and I said, honey, I love you. This is Memorial Day 2012. I said, I love you and I adore you. I've always loved you. I've always adored you. You're my bride. You're my everything. Tell my kids I love them. I'm going to see them in a little while, because we're supposed to go down the shore for the weekend for Memorial Day. And I knew I was going to never talk to my wife again. I knew I was going to never hear her voice again. But I had to do it to take care of them. And so I told them I'm on my way, and I got my truck and I got up to 100 miles an hour, and I put the car on cruise control and I turned the radio on. And I just closed my eyes, took my hands off the wheels, and I know, within a minute I'll be dead. And at least in the States, on the side of the roads, they have the little reflectors on the side where when you go over, you hear click, 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 click. So yeah. I started to click. I started to hear the clicking, and I knew I was probably 5-10 seconds from death. And I hear the song by Clint Black. It's called I Saw God Today. And it was about a man seeing his daughter for the first time at the hospital. And I remembered that I was the first one to ever change my daughter. I was the first one to ever feed her. I never missed a doctor's appointment. And at that moment, when he says, I looked in my little girl's eyes, I knew I can either keep going for that 3 seconds, or I can kick the wheel over and pull over. And at that moment is when I decided to become a father, and instead of become a statistic. And I pulled the truck over and I called my wife and I said, I told her what happened. And obviously she was really pissed off, when I told her my plan, because I had to be honest. I had to tell her what was going on. And I said, I need help. If I don't get help by the end of the weekend, I'm going to eat my gun. She said, honey, I got you. I got you. We can't get you into treatment until Tuesday because of the holiday. She said, but I got you. And I started therapy on that Tuesday. And I've been at the same therapist for 12 years. So I had a choice. I had 3 seconds to make a choice to be a husband and a father or to be a statistic. And I think a lot of us have that 3 seconds and we just make the wrong choice. Yeah. And unfortunately, I almost took myself out about a month ago.
Really?
And the only thing that saved me, and I talk about this, I wrote my obituary and I keep it in my wallet. It's telling me, Richard was a loving husband, loving father. He died peacefully with his family around him. He loved his friends. So I keep my obituary in my wallet. So I have to live up to that guy that I wrote about. And that little piece of paper actually saved my life again about a month ago. So
can you tell us more about that? Are you comfortable telling us more about that? Because that's another pivotal moment of choice, right?
Yeah, well, what happened was, I've helped. Sorry, I get emotional.
Yeah, I really want to honor that too. I'm seeing and connecting with so much emotion. So let's just take a moment and just take a breath and just like.
Well, I've helped hundreds of thousands of people, with my books, speaking, my podcasts. But it's the 3 people that I couldn't help that haunt me, and all 3 of them took their lives. And my friend Mike took his life about a month ago. And he was a police officer and he was a firefighter dealing with PTSD. And I talked to him the same day and I didn't see the signs. So I don't think about I guess it's kind of like if you're a big sports fan, Michael Jordan, he'll never tell you about the shots that he made. He'll tell you about the 9,000 that he missed. And for me, and I think a lot of people that are empaths and a lot of people that are healers, it's the ones that they couldn't help are the ones that haunt them at night.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but if I didn't write my obituary out and have that in my wallet, and I remembered, he said he died at his home with people around him, so he can't take himself out. I can't take myself out because if I said I love my wife and my kids, I wouldn't pass on the pain.
Yeah.
So that little sheet of paper saved me.
So again, I really want to take a moment and just honor the friend that you lost and just honor you and just really connecting with the pain and the power, right? Because that they coexist, right? The pain and the suffering. And now I think I'm getting right the what you're talking about, right? The power of deciding in that moment. And I think you're right. I think if we can quiet down and get intentional, I think there is a moment, right, when we can make and have a choice. So I just really want to honor.
Yeah, and like for me, I'm like 2 years ago, a friend of mine said it was New Year's Eve, and I had him on my show, and he's like, "I want you to write two words down for the next year," and it was intention and attention. Because I think that if we lived intentionally, that our lives can't help but get better if you do everything intentional. And for me, as a podcast host, as an author and a speaker, you want attention. So those are my 2 words for last year, and then this year, my 3 words are intention, attention, and retention. Because there's no sense of somebody listening to your podcast once and they don't come back. So I think if you provide enough value, you'll retain all your like what I can have the biggest bucket in the world, but if the same amount of water leaves that comes in, then I should have the smallest bucket in the world. Doesn't matter. And so for me, those are my three words: are intention, attention, and retention. And, but the biggest word I think, like you talk about, is intention. Because if you do things intentionally, like for me, and I talked about this on our amazing French podcast, Tammy, that for me, the biggest word one of the biggest words in the language, English language, is no. Like for me, if it's not God, family, friends, and business, I'm 99% of the time going to say no. I don't have the bandwidth to add a fifth thing. And I think, we get so bogged down with saying yes to everything that we never hit our goals because we're not really being intentional with our time.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you made some really great points. I mean, this podcast is all I do, right? The podcast, Communities of Books, is all about helping people live intentionally. So what is that? And I 100% agree. I think, again, it's kind of getting quiet, right? It's kind of going inside. And it's kind of saying, okay, what do I really want here? What's really important to me here? And then noticing, and again, this isn't a thinking thing, at least for me, it's not a thinking thing. It's like, what comes up, right? What comes up from the body? So what is setting intentional like for you? How does that work for you?
Well, my day, I plan out before I go to bed at night. So when I wake up in the morning, I have a great idea of what I'm doing. And then, like my friend David Meltzer, I had him on the show. He's got a $20 billion company. They wrote the movie Jerry Maguire about him. He says he plans out even 5 minutes to talk on the phone with his daughter when she's in college. 10 minutes to talk his mom on the phone. He tried to plan out everything. I mean, obviously things come up. Like I had to put my dog to sleep on Friday. But as long as you know that, okay, you be flexible, but you know that I'm doing this at this time, this at that time. Because if you don't, even James Clear wrote in his book, Atomic Habits.
Yeah.
If you don't run your schedule is going to run you. And for me, like I'm listening to audio tape. Like I said, I'm addicted to learning by my friend Brian Tracy. And Brian Tracy, and this is paraphrasing, he says, eat the frog. That's the first thing to do is eat the frog in the morning. Do the hardest shit first. Do the stuff you don't want to do first. And then but plan it. Make sure you try to plan as much of your day out as you can. And if you don't get it done, okay. But the next day, well, I didn't get that done. So let that be the first thing that I do this morning.
Right.
You see a lot of people are like, oh, I work 14 hours a day. And I'm like, but how much did you get done? And they're like, yeah, not much.
Yeah. Yeah. And why? Right? Why?
It's focus. And I believe, even like Brian says, I believe in the word focus. Follow one course until successful. Like, I'd rather have somebody work for me for 15 minutes with laser-like focus than somebody work for me an hour and be like, just hop, skip, and jumping everywhere. So I'll get more done in 4 hours than most people get done in 12 because I'll work on something until it's done. Instead of, I got a phone call to make, I got to go to my email, and you don't get that one thing done. So if you could just finish the one thing and then go on to the next thing, and I think a lot of people don't do that because they're not being intentional. Yeah. And I know, like most doctors, that's why anytime you go to a doctor, lawyer, psychologist, they all run by schedules. I mean, they got their times blocked. Yeah. But there's a reason why they're driving nice cars, living in nice houses. It's because they have they're being intentional with their time. Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I think it's so important, right? Really, again, connecting with yourself. What's important to me? What do I really want to do? Getting clear. For me, it's getting clear on the values, right? It's getting clear on what's important to you. What are your cornerstone values?
And then, the intention comes along, and I think that kind of gives the energy to that. And then maybe that's where the choice comes in, right? Because when you're clear on your values and you've got the energy of intention, then you can get really clear about that moment, that 3 seconds, right? When you say, okay, I'm going to listen to another podcast or scroll on my phone, or am I going to send that email that's super important, right? You do, in that time, there's definitely that moment of choice.
I mean,
Definitely.
I believe I can't be a good husband if I'm out on Friday night at the pub. I can't do it. I'm either going to be a great husband or a great father, or I'm going to be a married man about heading for divorce, and I believe in the power of the 5 people. If I'm hanging out with 5 guys at a pub, they're going through divorces. Guess who's going to be number 6?
Yeah.
If I'm hanging out with guys that are happily married, great businesses, successful, driving nice cars, living in a nice home, guess who's going to be number 6? So I believe in the power of the 5.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's kind of what's coming up for me, right? Is now let's touch on choice and addiction, right? Because I also work a lot with addiction. And when I say addiction, I'm talking about across the board. It can be, I don't know, drugs, sex, gambling, food, whatever, right? The addiction and choice. Talk to me about that. Talk to me about where those kind of lines cross, and when people have choices and maybe when they don't. And maybe they don't not have choices. I don't know.
Well, I have a different perspective. I've been in recovery 35 years. I'm still that old school guy that I don't do the whole coddling thing. I mean, I'll give somebody a hug when they need it, but I'm also going to be like, hey, nobody broke into your house yesterday. Open your mouth and pour the wine in your mouth. Nobody did that. At least nobody ever did that to me. But I'm also the guy that thinks that we're all addicted to something. Like at Christmas, when I first got sober, somebody made a wisecrack at a kitchen table. It was a family holiday, and I blew my top, and I just went from person to person. I'm like, you're addicted to money. You're addicted to sex. You're addicted to your phone. Your husband's addicted to his girlfriend. Another girlfriend. Everybody's addicted to something, so I don't want to hear shit from anybody. Because the average person picks up their phone 400 times a day. Is that addictive or what?
On the phone, right? I mean, literally, I heard, this is kind of a sidebar, I heard the other day some stats that we are wasting 20 years of our lifespan on scrolling on the phone. We could get 20 years back. Right?
So again, but it all is part of the same part of the brain. Whether it's sugar, whether it's sex, whether it's alcohol, drugs, when somebody likes a post on Facebook or you get a notification, it's all the same nervous system.
Right.
So, but as far as addiction goes, once I know that I'm an addict, and I'll tell everybody, I'm an addict. I got 35 years clean. I'm an addict because I know one drink, I'm done. It's a wrap. It's over. So, for me, even when I go out for dinner, my wife has tasted every single soda I've had since I got sober. My wife doesn't even cook with regular. When she bakes cookies, she makes a special batch for me so I don't have the vanilla extract.
Wow.
When I go to my sister's house, I make sure I ask her all the time, is there anything that I can't have? And I do that because I am an addict. And once I admit it to myself, well, okay, then, like a lot of people, say, Wayne, you're 35 years and you're clean. I'm like, yeah. And then when I go out to dinner, the waiter sometimes like, hey, y'all, come on, just have a drink. And I'm like, I'm allergic to alcohol. I break out in handcuffs. And then they laugh and they're like, oh, okay, I get it. But as long as I'm honest with myself, knowing I'm an addict, I'm an alcoholic. but I don't have to act upon it. Again, the decisions. Like if I turn to my left, I have a whole refrigerator full of wine coolers, twisted teas for my wife. I just don't drink. It's kind of like once you make that decision, like I don't cheat on my wife. There is no options. So once you make a decision, well, I just don't drink. Because I drink, I die. Next, and I think once somebody has that mentality, once you're like, okay, if you make your mind up and you don't do something, you're not going to do it. Like obviously, just being stupid or crazy. If you say, I gave up murder for Lent this year, you don't murder people, but that's non-negotiable.
Yeah.
For me, drinking and drugging, it's non-negotiable. I just don't do it.
Yeah.
But I had to realize, okay, you're an addict. You're an alcoholic. You lost that right. Other people can have a drink. I've drank enough for them. Now I've lost that right. But I don't get mad at people. I'll pour people drinks. I just don't drink.
Yeah.
And I think if you're if you have to, first thing you have to admit, I'm an addict.
Yeah.
And a lot of people hide it. And because of Gary Vee, I don't hide my addiction. That's, that's why I do what I do. I'm an addict. Okay. And
yeah. Next, right? Yeah. Next. So Richard, I have a question. I want to go back to this choice thing. Was there a time, and I think I know the answer, was there a time in your life when you didn't have a choice with regard to alcohol and your life was so out of control? And what was that pivotal, and if that's the case, what was the pivotal moment for you when you the light bulb went on and you were able to see that fork in the road, that choice? Tell me about that.
Well, the first drink I had was 11, New Year's Eve again. And the reason I hated the taste of alcohol, I've always hated the taste of alcohol, but the first time I had a drink, I felt warm and I realized I can be Rick. I don't have to be Richard. I could be a whole nother person. I could be outgoing, gregarious. I don't have. Five years from robbing a police officer. I'm looking at 5 years with no parole. 5 years. Or I can just not drink.
Wow.
And then when I sat and I'm 20 years old, I'm drunk, and I'm eating nasty cookies and drinking stale coffee. And I looked around at all these people, all these men at 45 years old, and I'm like, they're telling my story, and I'm home.
Wow.
But that was from the first drink to the last drink. Now I quit at the age of 20. So I was a full-blown alcoholic from 11 to 20. So for me, I've been sober with 35 years, going on 36, I think. But that was my first drink, and then that was my last drink. And so far, thank God, I'm clean and sober. I have never had anything more than stronger than an aspirin since 1989. But knowing I'm an addict and I'm an alcoholic, just one.
Yeah.
And and I tell I tell my wife, I'm not going back to day one. After 35 years, if I have a drink, I'm not coming home. I'm coming home in a body bag. But once I know that, well, then it's a non-negotiable.
Yeah, that's powerful.
But it's all about being self-aware
and intentional, right? Intentional, especially in early recovery, right? I mean, you have to drive. Alcohol's everywhere. I mean, holy moly, you can't hardly pass 5 miles.
But and a lot of people don't realize that even if you have to read, even like mouthwash, it's like 40% alcohol volume. Even certain cookies, anisette cookies, vanilla cookies, a lot of foods, balsamic vinaigrette, a lot of it's alcohol based. I mean, some people may say, well, you won't notice. I know.
Yeah.
If I know, well, hey, I already slipped up. I'm already back at day one. So
Yeah.
I'm going all out. So if
Yeah.
I make sure that I make sure that I don't put myself in those positions. Like when I still go to meetings, I don't go to meetings with women. I'll go with the guys because I don't want to put myself in any situations. Because a lot of 13 steppers out there. And if you guys are in recovery, you know what that means.
Yeah.
But, so I think being a man or a woman, you have to watch the situations that you put yourself in. And it all comes down to intention.
Right. Right. It does. It really does. It does. Yeah. 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 So I'm curious. I want to ask you a question just in this moment, like what's coming up for you? What are you thinking, feeling? Where's your mind going? What's coming up?
Gratitude.
Can you
I'm a
tell me?
gratitude guy. I'm a big gratitude guy.
Can you tell me more about that?
Well, like one of my hacks is, and I talk about it on my show all the time. Before I go to bed at night, I wrap my arm around my wife. Even though if we argued, I pissed her off, she yelled at me, whatever. I put my arm around my wife and I pray for her. I pray for her happiness. I pray for her health. I pray that she knows that I love her and I adore her. And then I used to pray for my dog every day, which she'd lay in between us, and I would pray for her, for her health and her happiness. And then I'll say, Lord, and I'll pick 3 things out of my day that happened that I'm grateful for. And this interview is going to be at the top spot. I'm going to say, Lord, thank you. Thank you so much. I'm truly humbled and grateful. Thank you. And then I thank him for my day. And then when I wake up in the morning, if I open my eyes, if I could see anything, because I'm still 60% blind, if I could see anything, I just literally sit up in bed and I say, Lord, thank you. It's going to be an awesome day. I don't know what you got coming, good, bad, whatever. I'm just grateful that I'm here. So I go to bed with gratitude and I wake up with gratitude. So before my feet hit the floor, I'm living in gratitude. And guys, if you're over the age of 55, you get up, you go to the bathroom, can't get to bed. I say sometimes, Lord, you know what? Just thank you. Let me just sit here and let me listen to my wife breathe. Knowing my boys are downstairs and my daughter's upstairs, just thank you, God. Thank you for what I have. And if you live with gratitude, and I believe like when I'm wiping down my house, I'm cleaning the kitchens or whatever, I'm saying thank you. Thank you. Thank you for the house that I have. Because, 35 years ago, I was eating out of garbage cans. I was homeless. And now when I go out to eat, I'm ordering filet mignon. I'm ordering a lobster tail because I'm realizing I'm grateful. But I don't have the poor mindset anymore. Where like when I'm cleaning my kitchen and I'm cleaning the granite countertops, I'm saying, Lord, thank you for the house that I have. Thank you for the beach house that's coming. Thank you for my Kia that I have. But thank you for the new boat and the new truck that's coming. But I'm grateful for what I have. And I think that once you're grateful for what you have, the universe says, take more. Take whatever you want if you're grateful.
Yeah.
But if you don't live in gratitude for what you have, you're probably not going to get much more because you're not grateful for what you have. And I just put out a post today that talking about relationships, husbands, wives, kids, what you appreciates.
Yes.
And if you don't appreciate what you have, you're going to miss what you lost.
Yeah.
So I think for me, gratitude, I'm a gratitude guy. I have the attitude of gratitude every day.
I'm really connecting with that and really resonates with me too, because I'm kind of similar. I have my own kind of morning and evening thing, and it is all about gratitude and putting your energy where you want to go, right? Putting your energy to where you want to go, not what you haven't got or what you've lost or all the shit in the past, right? But really putting your energy about kind of now and the gratitude, and then where I like to call it setting your compass, right? You're setting your compass through gratitude, through your energy to where you want to go. I love that.
And I love that because
yeah.
even if you talk to single people and you ask them about their future mate, they're going to tell you everything they don't want, right, instead of everything that they do want. And my friend Joe, my business coach, Joe Nicasio, told me that whatever you ask of life is exactly what you're going to get.
I mean, that's so true. I'm going to stop, pause, say that again. Say that again.
That whatever you ask for life, if you ask life for a dime, you're going to get a dime. It might have wanted to give you $1, but you asked for a dime.
Yeah.
So, and, even like Mr. Dale Carnegie, wrote that your obsessions become your possessions. So that's using your RAS system, whatever you think about enough, you'll become.
Yeah. 100%. And yeah, I mean, yeah, the hairs on my body are tingling right now because I'm, again, really connecting and 100% aligned with what you're saying right now. Yeah. So thank you for sharing that. So quick kind of question. So I do like to give people kind of actionable tips and strategies. So we've talked about, the power of intention. We've talked about choosing today. So let's dial in, 3 or 4 actionable things that people, if they're struggling or they're hearing, but they're not quite sure where to go. Give us some concrete strategies, Richard.
Well, I mean, if you're in the United States, shut the TV off, shut the news off, because if it bleeds, it leads. So make sure that you shut the TV off. There's nothing positive for you on there. Anyway, that would be my number one thing. Watch what you say to yourself. Like I read this book. It was called From Homeless to Billionaire. And this gentleman said, you should pick 5 things that you say to yourself constantly, 8, 10 times a day. Because we talk to ourselves in such a way that we would never talk to anybody else. We will call ourselves a loser. We'll call ourselves, whatever, whatever. We'll call ourselves so many things. And what we say to ourselves is what we become. So I would definitely watch out, for your speech, because I was talking to a billionaire. We had lunch. We were playing poker one night. And he owns the largest timeshare company in Florida. And I'm like, what's the difference between, you and the one that's cleaning up all the glasses around us? And he said, her vocabulary. That's the only difference between a billionaire and a poor person, is their vocabulary. And I believe a lot of it has to do with what we say, how we say it, how we talk to people, how we talk to ourselves. Yeah. So, and then, I always tell everybody, watch your BS. And that means watch your belief systems. You are the average of the 5 people, that you hang around. And now listen to this, because I'm big on LinkedIn. I think I got like 30,000 connections on LinkedIn. The average CEO makes up to 60 times more than the average worker. But the average CEO reads 60 books a year, where the average worker doesn't finish 1 book a year.
Oh.
So we talked about it earlier. Readers are leaders, like those books there.
Yeah.
And learners are earners.
Ah.
So if you want to be successful, you have to see what successful people do. Follow them. And I don't remember the word you said about, working backwards. I can never remember that saying, how you have to find somebody successful and then work backwards of what they're doing.
Yeah.
So I think that's a couple of pieces of advice. If somebody's just trying to get their lives together, you just, watch your tongue, Watch your brain, because your mind will lie to you. Imposter syndrome is a real thing.
Yeah.
And just watch who you're hanging out with. And okay, the easiest way I'll put this for anybody that's watching, your brain is like your Facebook feed or Instagram feed. Whatever you heart, it's going to show you more of, and whatever you swipe, it's not going to show you more of. So if you want to change your life, like you change you can change your Instagram or Facebook profile, heart all the positives for the next 30 days. Your whole life will change, because it's going to show you what you're looking for.
Wow, that's huge. So I'm going to say that again. Heart all the positives, and different things are going to show up, right?
Because you're looking for it, and you're using your reticular activating system to find things, and your obsessions. Because it's kind of like, what was when you bought your last car? What color was it?
White.
So when you bought that white car, that specific car, and you drove it off the lot, all of a sudden you see nothing but that car in white.
That's right.
That's your reticular activating system, because it's searching for what you look for.
Yeah.
And your mind is like that. Whether you look for positives or negatives, you're going to find it. You know, like I love just saying, if you think you can or you can't, you're right.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So for me, that's that intentionality. That's why it's so important to be intentional, right? And then again, what layers in, and then you get to choose, right? They come together. They're a team. Intentionality leads to clarity and choice. Yeah.
But you have to choose to be intentional. You can't be accidentally intentional.
That's true. That's
no
true.
way. Like there's nothing that you ate today that you accidentally fell in your mouth.
That's true.
You had to literally think, all right, am I going to pick this up? Am I going to open my mouth and put it in?
That's true. But I can tell you, I just had lunch with friends, and there was a beautiful pie cabinet, and we ordered 3 pieces of pie. I don't know how much choice I had in that. There was a big, that part, right, that wants it, right? That part that's the go part that we've been talking about, that I have pretty decent control over, but I know that some people don't, right? Some people but then
let's take that, for instance. Say you and your girlfriends are out, and you have these huge pieces of pie, and they tell you each pie has enough cyanide in it to kill you guys.
Oh, yeah, that would be
Are you going to eat
no-go. That would be a no-go, right?
So then there's a choice.
Yeah.
When you think of it, well, what is the choice? How important is the choice? How important it is to have, have a piece of cake, that's no big deal. But, if somebody says, well, you eat it, you're going to die. Well, maybe you're probably not going to have it.
Right. No, Richard, you bring up a really good point. I've had a real struggle with sugar, right? So at some point in my life, like a 10-year decade period, I had to really work. I'm not going to say it was an addiction, but it was a problem, right? And the way I overcame that is in my mind, I made the choice, going back to the choice, to tell myself sugar is poison. Right? Sugar is poison. It's poison for me. It's poison for my body. And at the time it really was, right? And that is a choice, right? I knew it was destructive. I knew it wasn't helpful. And I said to myself, okay. And so I went for that piece of chocolate or the cake or whatever. And I would say to myself, condition, like, okay, this is poison. This is not, I can't eat this. This is, and now I have a much healthier relationship with sugar, but that really helped, right? That looking like something as poison or something that's going to kill you or something that's going to really harm you, that can be enough of a nudge, right? To do that hard no, which is what we're talking about, making that choice.
And like I said, for me, I drink, I die.
Yeah.
It's just, it's a non-starter for me. And I think once you have that, like if you're married and you love your wife or your husband, somebody's like, hey, we're going to go out with the girls and the guys. And you're like, yeah, I don't do that.
Yeah.
It's just there's a non-starter.
Right. Right.
And if you've struggled with sexual addiction and stuff like that, sometimes you have to say, no, I don't, I can't put myself in precarious positions. Yeah. And once you learn to realize, okay, well, this is how I live my life now.
Yeah.
I just don't do certain things.
Right.
And the funny thing is, even with alcohol, like my podcast, I've had people come on and be like, we're going to offer you, $30,000 to sponsor your show, but we're an alcohol brand.
Mm.
And I'm like, so wait a minute, you want I can tell my people that listen to me, hey guys, I use, because anybody that sponsors my show, I use all the products. I actually use it. I won't bring them on if I don't use the products. So if you're telling me, hey, we're a CBD company or we're an alcohol company, we want to sponsor your show. And all of a sudden, if you've seen my show and then on a ticker it says, vodka and CBD, and you're like,
yeah,
I don't get it.
Yeah.
And then you realize, certain people look up to you. They may not say anything, but they're looking to you and watching you and saying, okay, Rich struggles with this. And, so for me, people might be looking at you for strength and you don't even know that they're watching you, including your kids. And if you're telling your kids don't drink and don't get high and you're drinking and getting high, then you're the problem.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I got 3 kids. I got a 22-year-old, 19-year-old, and a 13-year-old. And I can't be acting stupid and then asking them not to act stupid.
Right. Yeah, that's powerful. Well said. Well said. Well said. So before I ask my final kind of sage advice question, is there anything else you want to add or share or on your mind or on your heart? It doesn't have to be, but I want to check in.
Well, I just want to offer this to anybody that's listening, and I'm offering you my book, my first book for free. All you have to do is get your email to me, and you get my book for free, and you also get an hour of my time.
Wow!
Whatever you want, if you're struggling with anything, or even if you're just like, hey, I want to sit and bullshit for a while, you get an hour of my time on your schedule. I'll work around Zoom, whatever you want to do. So you get the book for free and you get an hour of my time for free with no strings attached whatsoever.
Wow, that's
any friend of hers is a friend of mine.
Richard, that's super generous and so heartfelt, right? I can really feel that you're completely upfront, completely genuine, right? There's no funnel, there's no strings, there's no hook. So,
and Tammy knows it, and we had such a great time on her show, and she knows that I'm as real as it gets. I mean, I have a book that's out right now. It's actually hit #1 on Amazon. It's #1 now on how to start a podcast but I'm not going to sell you anything. If you don't need anything, you might just need a shoulder to cry on.
Yeah.
You might need somebody to, bend somebody's ear. And thank God I got big shoulders and big ears, so I'm able to listen to people.
Yeah. And you've got all this lived experience, right? So you can really connect and you can really resonate, right, with a lot.
And the good thing is, like, when somebody talks to me, is they know where I've come from. So there's no judgmental whatsoever. And they also know that if somebody talks to me, it stays between me and that person.
Yeah.
Even I'm in recovery 35 years, but I believe in the anonymity. I can never get that word right. The anonymity. I believe that if you trust me, whatever you say, it never goes any further.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people need that. They're afraid to open up because they're like, man, somebody's going to tell or somebody's going to find out.
Yeah.
And people talk to me and they're like, I said that 10 years ago. You never said anything. I'm like, because I might need something. I might not need you trusting you. So if I trust you, it's perfect.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Beautiful. And yes, solid, really picking up that solid vibe. So thank you. So my last question I ask people all the time is, if you had one piece of sage advice, right, through all of your wisdom, all the years about living intentionally, right, what would that be?
Your calendar and your checkbook are what you prioritize in your life. Go over the next 30 days, see what you've spent money on and what you spent your time on. That's the real priority in your life. You may say it may be family, but if you're golfing every weekend, or if you're at the pub or you're at the liquor store, whatever you spend your time and your money on in the last 30 days, those are your actual priorities.
Love that. I love that. Yeah, I love that. So, Richard, where can people find you?
Well, and I got to thank Gary Vaynerchuk for this. He told me, I've been doing my show 6 years now, 1,200 episodes, almost 1,300 episodes. So if you Google vertical momentum, we're the first 8 pages of Google. So if you just, people say, how do we find you? And I'm like, my biggest flex is just Google us.
Got it.
I don't have to say I'm great. I don't have to say, just Google us. If we're on the first 8 pages of Google, if you Google Vertical Momentum Podcast, we're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, Pinterest, Tumblr, Flickr, TikTok. So all you have to do is Google us and you'll find us somewhere.
Wow. And of course, I'll put the links in the show notes as well. So all you have to do is to click and you can reach Richard. And again, thank you for your super generous offer. And I have to tell you, I've really so enjoyed our conversation today. And I want to really heartfelt thanks for all you are doing, right? You're making such an impact on people's lives. And, these conversations are really, really important. So thank you for your time today. You've been amazing.
Can I just add one thing? First, 2 things, actually. Tammy Vincent, I love you. Thank you so much. Also, guys, if you're listening to this, make sure you go to iTunes. Make sure you leave a 5-star written review, because each 5-star written review is worth 10 just star reviews. And just let her know, this young lady, that she's doing a great job. And this way she can help more people by getting kicked up into the algorithm. And it's free, so it doesn't cost anything to leave a written review. So
thank you, Richard. You've been amazing. Lots of love. And I know that we're going to connect again pretty soon. And
I can't wait for you to come on my show. I'm going to be sending you my booking link so we can hook up in August.
Awesome. I'll get that out to listeners as well. All right. Take care.
Thanks so much for listening. I truly appreciate you and your time. I love to hear from listeners, so connect with me at katechampionauthor.com. Remember to grab your free hiking guide, and please take a quick moment to rate, review, and subscribe to the show. Thanks so much. Take care. Until next time. Hey, me again. Just a reminder, this podcast should not be considered professional advice. It's also not a substitute for mental, physical, or any other healthcare-related treatment. For any questions about your condition and/or concerns, please contact a fully licensed healthcare professional. Thank you.